Welcome back. Now, according to Sanlam, while 65 remains the official retirement age, most South Africans cannot afford to retire at this age and will have to work an additional 15 years to achieve financial security in retirement. How does one prepare for this? Nzwa Shoniwa, Managing Executive of Sanlam Umbrella Solutions, joins us now. Nzwa, thanks so much for joining us. But that 15-year gap, really scary. Just take us through some of the findings in the research at what it suggests about South Africans.
No, thank you, and thanks for having me. I guess what we're trying to get out there is to highlight once again the dire state of people's retirement savings within South Africa. And the whole 15 years that you need to retire at age 80, we're trying to say to people that they do not have enough. It's a call to action for people to try and save more. And, we speak in that article about a net replacement ratio of 25%. And really what people should be targeting is that they should be targeting a net replacement ratio of about 70 to 75%. And what a net replacement ratio is, it's a percentage of your final salary that you can buy as a pension. So if you've got a lump sum when you get to retirement, you want to replace 70 to 75% of your final salary on a monthly basis.
Yes.
Now, from our data, the 300,000 members that we've got on the Sanlam Umbrella Fund, when we did the modeling and looked at, what they were headed towards from a net replacement ratio perspective, most of them are headed towards a net replacement ratio of about 25%. So they'll only manage to replace a quarter of their final salary. And that's where the question is, can you afford to live on 25% of your final salary? And if you can't, which we know most people can't, you have to work an additional 15 years.
So working an additional 15 years because you're currently saving 25%. But I guess, what does that say about the cost of living in South Africa? Because, we're also seeing individuals withdraw from the two-pot as well.
100%. And that's where, the situation in South Africa is quite unique in comparison to your developed economies. And what you find in South Africa is that even though we've got the stats, we can see that people are heading towards a situation where they won't have enough when they get to retirement.
Yeah.
It's quite unique in the sense that people still cannot save more today, knowing where they are headed. And some of the factors that, play into that is what you've just mentioned. The high inflation rates that you find in our country, the high unemployment rates where people only start working and saving towards retirement, from the age of 30 or 35. Whereas in some economies, people start working at 21, 22. So that compound interest that they get, which is for an additional 9 to 10 years, makes a huge difference when they get to retirement. So I think it's quite difficult in the sense that what is the immediate solution? The immediate solution is additional contributions towards your retirement savings or increasing that percentage. But we know a lot of people can't afford that, because it means less net take-home pay. And we are in a situation now where, if we look at the stats post-COVID, a lot of households now only have one income post-COVID. So living off that one income for a family, it makes it very difficult to try and make a meaningful impact on your retirement savings and have that impact on your net replacement ratio when you get to retirement.
And I can imagine the kind of impact that would have on, let's say, the state, for example, because if you cannot afford to save up for retirement, you're then probably relying on grants from the state. And looking at the delayed budget, we are seeing that government is looking to fill the revenue, and I guess that not looking good as well.
100%. And the difficulty that you have is that you've got people that are saving within this public and private sort of pension system. And when they get to retirement, they don't have enough at retirement to actually sustain their their standard of living that they had just before retirement. But they also don't qualify for the state pension because they've got something saved up. And even if they did qualify for the state pension, the issue that we have in the country is the amount of pressure that exists on that social security system. So, one of the aspects that was not really spoken about last year around two-pot is that two-pot is meant to try and alleviate some of that pressure on the social security system much further down the line. And maybe just to talk about it, since you brought up two-pot, is that within two-pot you've got the three savings pots, the savings, the vested, and the retirement pot. And going forward, you'll only have access to your savings pot, which is the 1/3 where contributions are going. The remainder, which is the savings pot, the retirement pot and the vested pot, the retirement pot, you won't have access to that pot. So what they are trying to do is to force some sort of preservation. So when people get to retirement, there's this pot that they have not been able to access as they change jobs. Because the real issue that we have and where this 25% net replacement ratio is coming from is issues around preservation.
Yes.
When people change jobs, and the average South African from our stats is changing jobs 6 to 7 times during their working career. Every single time they've been accessing their retirement savings. So in your last job, you start saving and you 6, 7 years from retirement, it's too late. So the forced preservation through the two-part legislation should make some sort of meaningful difference in terms of people's net replacement ratios and the pressure on the social security system, of which we know currently a lot of people are getting to retirement and trying to access that social security system, but there's already way too much pressure. And to your point, last week just showed us the amount of balancing that the Treasury is trying to do simply because of the holes that they're trying to plug.
Before I let you go, Nzwa, on the flip side, right, I can imagine the kind of impact an aging, not necessarily a population, but an aging workforce could have on the company as well, because having people that are up to 75, 80 in the workforce, also just limiting opportunities for younger people as well.
And you're spot on. When we had a lot of questions, criticism when we released the article. And it's not that we were advocating for the retirement age to be moved from 65 to 80.
Yeah.
We were highlighting, where we are as a country and, some of a different way of showing how bad the retirement situation is. And you're spot on. We're in an economy where I think last week the unemployment stats came out at 31.9%. But importantly is that age of 15 to 34, 15 to 24, the unemployment rate in that category is about 60%. So for a company, that you want to bring in fresh blood, you want to bring in the younger people, they are more tech savvy, and they'll bring a different sort of way of doing things in your company. But you also have this dilemma of the older aging population that don't have enough to retire and leave your company. And as you also advertise for new positions, you've got these older people that are applying for that same role that a younger person would apply for at what is termed a low salary for an entry-level role. So, companies are faced with this dilemma of, you've got experienced people older, or do you bring in the younger unemployed people? Because dealing with the unemployment rate, I think it's not only a state issue. I think, there's a role that we can play as private sector. But the issue that you have of the older, experienced people not having enough when they get to retirement and wanting to stay within the workforce, and there's obviously a benefit to us to having those more experienced people staying within the workforce, then creates this dilemma of what do you do? Do you bring in younger people and they start saving for retirement at a younger age, or do you hold on to the older people?
We said, the minister has a tough balancing act, but it seems like the private sector also has a tough balancing act. Nzwa, thanks so much for your time and your insights. That was Nzwa Shoniwa, Managing Executive of Sanlam Umbrella Solutions.